Assignment 3, let's get started on this one. This one we can break down into a few different component parts. The first one is how to move things on the screen, which again goes back to animation badges, but because it's in well, there's a few different things that might have to happen that you might not have done before, so we should take a look at how to do that. So before we can click something, we really need to have something on the screen that we can click, right? Let's take a look at our basic setup. We, as usual, have some imports. I threw random in. We're going to use that later. Actually, I'll take it out until we use it, just so I can guide you along on how to do that. We're going to have a function that lets us see if we're clicking the mouse. We'll build that later. We're going to have a function that draws, and then our basic setup. There's one new thing here that we did, which is instead of a button on the side of this screen, we want to have a label on the side of the screen. So we're going to make a label for what score we're currently getting. So if up here I was to set a global variable to be score, excuse me, maybe I will again label where I'm doing this. So when I set up my score to 0, then when I run this, I have this over here. So instead of looking like a button that I can click, it's now just a label. But what we can do is we can change the label so that the score, when it changes, also changes. So that's what this is. It's show the word score and then add to that the string of the variable score. So that's how our label's working. So those are all our basic things. So what we want to do in our draws, we basically want to draw a circle. We're going to draw a circle to the screen, and then we're going to move that circle around. So circle, yeah, that's how you do it. Canvas, draw a circle. And what are the things that we're going to need for our circle? We're going to need the circle's x and y values, so maybe circle's x and y value. We're going to need the circle's radius. And then we want to, make just an interesting color circle. Now, why did I go ahead and create these as variables right away? Well, because I already know that these things are going to change as we move around, so I'm just going to create those right away, which means I go up here to global values and I say, okay, what do I want my x value to start at? Well, I'm not sure. Let's just put a 0 for now. My y value 0 for now. And my radius, oh, maybe 25 or something, right? So that I have a basic thing. If I run this, yay, there's a circle up there in the corner. So that's great. How do we get the circle to move? Well, if I, again, go back to run, how do I want this circle to behave? What I really want it to do, I can't have it fall from an expected spot because it has to be, otherwise I could just put my mouse in the same spots every time and I could just become a master at the game. So I need a random X location of the screen. I want it to start somewhere at the top, but I don't know where on the top. So that's where I'm going to need my random. I need it to randomly spawn here at the top. But I also, once it's spawned, I don't want it to go away or keep spawning at the top. I want it to fall. So that's when its y value has to change, is when it's moving down the screen. So if you think about it, the circle kind of has two states of being. State number one is, spawn state. What are the initial values of the circle I want to give it? State number two is falling state, and it goes on down the screen. So what I do when I have a situation like that is I create, first of all, where's it going to move? Well, I can set up a timer and move it on a timer, but because every time it draws, I want it to be in a new location, it makes sense to me to make a function here called move that just keeps on every time it draws it on the screen. It first checks to see if it moves. So now I have that. So now it's going to have things here that happen when it moves. Okay, so let's deal with spawning the circle first. So when we spawn the circle, we want to set an initial value for everything. So, I want to start at the top of the screen, right? If I wanted to, I could even start it a little bit higher than the top of the screen so that you don't get a half a circle at the beginning. I've never actually bothered with that before, but that'll be fun. And I want it to have a x value, so I said, I want a random x value. So I want to set this x value to a random integer. If it creates something over on the left side of the screen, maybe 0, that means it could only draw on like half of the screen and be almost off of the screen. Do I care? So what if I said, well, start it at the radius, so it always is a little bit over. And where do I want it to end? Well, I want it to end when it gets to the width, right? Well, then it could get to the edge of the screen and be barely visible. So what if it was the width minus the radius, so it has to be over a little bit? So now the x value's been created and the y value's been created. So we're ready to spawn. Well, how do I tell the difference between the state of being where it spawns and the state of being where it's falling? So what I do is I create a Boolean for that. So what I do is I say, okay, I've turned on the circle. The circle's ready to go. So it's set up with its y, it's set up with its x, turn it on, it's ready to go. And then what I do is I throw this in here. I throw, if the circle is false, do these things. That means, the circle doesn't exist, so therefore we want it to become existing. Just as a shortcut, instead of saying circle is false, I could say if not circle. So then up here, I told it my x value, what that should be. I told it my x and my y, they exist. So one new thing happens, which is circle. So let's say, okay, well, the circle starts being off. It doesn't start on the screen. So now I've got some global things going on here. So now I'm going to have to say, oh, I have to change the x value, I have to change the y value, I have to change the value of if my circle is on or not. So those are the things I want to do if my circle is not on the screen. So now when I run it, oh, see, I deleted that before, right? Import the random function. Okay, so it created a circle, theoretically. I created it with a negative y value, so it's up here somewhere where I can't see. So, boy, I should really make that thing fall. So how do I make it fall? Well, the falling would be the other situation. If circle is false, it does these things, so the only other situation is circle is true, so I should start moving it. So how do you move things on the screen? Does the x value change? Not for me. I want it to fall down the screen, so the y value is going to change. Now, how fast do I want to make it fall? That's where a number you're going to have to play around with. Do I want to fall 50? Let's just take a quick look. Whoa, that was quick. So that seemed too fast. Well, what if since I'm going to have to play around with this, what if I made that a variable too? Just so up here I can say C speed is 5. And that way, if I change my mind, see, the radius is not going to change in our game, but if I change my mind, now I can quickly change it up here. My speed is not going to change, but if I change my mind, I can quickly change it up here. And if you wanted to make levels, maybe these things would change as you made fancier levels. Okay, so I run the game. My circle spawned over there, got to the bottom. That's not an exciting game if it only can happen once. So you say to yourself, I want it to change its state of being. When it gets to the bottom of the thing, no one's clicked it or anything. It needs to start over at the top again. So what I want to do is I want to say if you reach, needs an if statement. If CY gets greater than the height of the screen, then it's gone too far. And because of that, circle equals false. So this one can turn on the circle. This one now has the ability to turn off the circle. And so now I have a thing that's just moving down the screen. add a speed, and when it hits the bottom, it spawns a new location and starts over again. So that's it. That's how to move things on the screen. You can take this and do all sorts of things with it. If you say, oh, I want 5 circles on the screen, how are you going to do that? Well, option 1 is to make a new variable for every single one of those. And option 2 is to use a list of variables. So instead of having one CX, you have a CX of position 0 and a CX of position 1, and so on and so forth. So those are 2 options that you'd have. I'd stick with one circle for now until you're more comfortable with it.